Hello and welcome to the first Crimewatch of 2010. We're live and with dozens of senior detectives from across the UK hoping that your call will help to solve a major crime tonight. Like the senseless murder of Alan Wood. We'll have more on that case in just a moment. Also coming up on tonight's programme, new leads in the investigation into serial killer Peter Tobin. And we're after the arsonist who killed this little girl and her grandmother. And Rav has got his New Year's wish list.
Yeah, well as this ugly bunch, we're on the hunt for the carjacker who'll stop at nothing to get what he wants.
And in the week, this former school governor and father of four was sentenced to life for the murder of 16-year-old Colette Aram. I've got the inside story of how the police, after a 26-year manhunt, finally solved the first ever appeal on Crimewatch.
But first tonight, a case that is simply, well, it's beyond comprehension. A few weeks before Christmas, 50-year-old Alan Wood was attacked and murdered at his home in Lincolnshire. But this was no robbery gone wrong. In an orgy of violence, Alan was tortured and his body mutilated before his killers made off with nothing more than a couple of his bank cards. In a moment, we're going to be joined by Adam Gregory. He's one of the UK's leading criminal psychologists and the detective superintendent leading this huge manhunt. But for now, watch our reconstruction. We have to find Alan's killers tonight.
He was just a gentle person, a caring person.
He was loving and just would do anything for anybody. He just loved the simple things in life.
The terror that I know he must have gone through. And there was nobody there to help him. That's what I live with.
The remote Lincolnshire hamlet of Lound only has 14 houses. It's the sort of place that even locals don't know about. But that all changed last October when 50-year-old Alan Wood was brutally murdered in his own home. The level of violence was incomprehensible. It's one of the most distressing crime scenes I've ever seen.
It was a Monday morning when the police came and told us.
And when they actually said the word that he'd actually been murdered, I just howled. I just couldn't believe that there would be anybody in the world that would want to murder Alan.
We know that on Wednesday afternoon, Alan called in at Morrison's in Stamford before popping into his local pub on the way home.
Hiya, you all right?
Usual, Alan.
Yeah, please.
That was the last sighting we had of Alan alive.
Is he?
Yeah, just a bit.
What happened between him leaving the pub on Wednesday and being discovered on Saturday takes us into the realms of speculation. But we think he was murdered on the Thursday evening.
Doctor Who and the Mysterious Blonde kick off Thursday night on BBC3, followed by Doctor Who Confidential after for all your behind-the-scenes stuff. Then later, the last in the series about comedy about life-saving fresh out.
I'm bullied! I'll get you my bullied, but don't do this, please! What are your PIN numbers? No, don't kill me! Please, don't kill me!
The full details of what Alan suffered are far too disturbing to document, but we know Alan was tortured, mutilated and had his throat cut.
The terror that my son must have felt when those people were going to kill him. And he knew he was going to die.
They asked me if I would go and identify his body. So that's now the last image I've got of the husband I had, is lying there and knowing what had happened to him.
I couldn't believe it. It wasn't something that happens to people like us.
Between Thursday evening and Sunday afternoon, money was taken out of Alan's accounts from several cash machines in the area. We're here in Lound, and on Thursday evening at around 9 p.m, Alan's cards were used here in Bourne, a few minutes' drive away. And on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, Alan's cards were used again here in Stamford at the NatWest Bank. Whoever used these cards knew the towns well. They avoided the CCTV where they could, and where they couldn't, they disguised themselves. Crucially, a witness saw two men at the Sainsbury's cash point at exactly the same time as Alan's cards were being used. They didn't have scarves over their faces. She gave us this. Alan Wood was an ordinary man, killed in an extraordinarily brutal way. His killers knew this area well. They may even have known Alan. So who are they?
I haven't got long to live, for a few years, 10 years, perhaps if I'm lucky. I've got to make the best of those 10 years. And try and live with the happy thoughts and the happy times we had.
To know how Alan suffered at the hands of these people is never going to go away.
If he'd had a heart attack or he'd been sick and ill, I would have come to terms with that. But what I'm not coming to terms with is the savage way my son was killed. And for what? I need to know for what, why.
Well, I'm joined by Detective Superintendent Stuart Morrison and criminal psychologist Adam Gregory. Welcome to you both. An appalling thing that this gentleman went through, and for his family, for Alan's family, just incredible to have to deal with this level of sorrow. Terrible for them.
Yeah, terrible. Alan was living a quiet life in a village, going about his business, was very popular, very well liked, and then suddenly his family are forced to cope with an event like this.
We heard there in the reconstruction from his wife. In fact, they didn't live together. They were separated, but still on very good terms, and they got on well and spoke regularly. You obviously have been trying to piece together the horror of what happened in his home. Where are you so far?
We believe that Alan was targeted. He lives in a small village. What we don't know exactly is why. We know his bank cards were stolen, PIN numbers were obtained, and money was taken. But it may be that these killer or killers went for another reason. I can't say definitively that was the motive for going there.
All right, Adam, let me come to you now. The level of violence used, truly horrific. What does it tell you as a specialist in these matters about the kind of people who perpetrated this crime?
I think, first of all, it tells us that they probably didn't have things their own way inside the house. I think there's quite a strong level of resistance from the victim, which has, if you like, escalated the violence. We know that multiple offenders tend to exhibit more violent behaviour when they act together, which is also a factor here, possibly a level of drink or drugs as a sort of a disinhibitor for the offenders, but certainly their comfort with the level of violence is quite horrific and unusual.
OK, and the level of comfort, would that then lead you to believe that these are people who are routinely violent, for example, maybe as they deal with people close to them on a daily basis?
I think it would be surprising if this was the first time that they've just exhibited this sort of behaviour. That's not to say they've done this sort of thing before, but they're people that will just get what they want, and if that means that they need to use violence to get it, they'll be very comfortable to do it.
And what about their familiarity with Alan himself? Do you reckon they knew him?
I think they need to have known him, but I don't think they're very closely associated with him. He's an identifiable target in the locality. They can then know where he lives, and then really he's just someone that serves their purposes, so I wouldn't expect them to be very close, but someone that knows of Alan rather than knows Alan.
Right, and what about, can I just ask you briefly about, we saw in the reconstruction that he drove a Jag. Do you think somebody went in there thinking, you know, actually getting it quite wrong and thinking he was somebody with a few bob?
I think that's a real possibility. There seems to be perhaps a perception of a lot more wealth than was the reality. And I think the car could well be a factor in that facilitated the targeting in this case.
OK, Stuart, take me through what we definitely know then, the last movements.
Alan was at his local pub, the Willoughby Arms, on the Wednesday the 21st of October, left there around 6:30. We don't really know what happened to him after that. We believe he may have been killed on the Thursday evening, but his body wasn't found until the Saturday, but we have no track of his movements after 6:30 p.m. on the Wednesday.
Stuart, let's take a look at that. We saw it in the reconstruction, the CCTV. What are we looking at here? This is the guy who was about to go and use the cash machine with one of the cards.
That's right. On the Thursday, he seems a youngish man, fit, he knows where he's going, a fairly confident type of a gait, I would say.
Right, and we've got a clear view of what he's wearing there, so people can take a look at that online as well. More distinctive items of clothing, the scarf there and so on, the baseball cap. We've also got this e-fit, the woman outside the supermarket. Describe this chap.
Yes. Again, user of the ATM cards, dark eyebrows, dark brown eyes, 2 to 3 days stubble, the baseball type cap again, and a round face.
Now, Stuart, crucially, it really is crucial that you've got DNA from the scene of the crime.
Yes, we do. We have blood from within the scene that gives us a full male profile. The challenge for us is there is no trace of that on the National DNA database. OK, so you can discount somebody. If somebody tonight is watching this and thinks they've got a person in mind, having looked at the CCTV and the rest of it, if they're wrong, you can discount them with the DNA. For now, thank you to both of you. Whoever did this to Alan simply has to be caught. I should tell you that his employer has put up a £10,000 reward for information that will lead to an arrest and a conviction. So please, if you know anything at all that could help, do call us here in the studio. The number, as ever, is 0500 600 600, or you could call the independent charity Crime Stoppers anonymously. Their number 0800 555 111. If you want to take another look at that CCTV, you can do that online, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. Now here's Rav with the first of tonight's Most Wanted.
And kicking things off this year is Nidas Nika, and police want to speak to him about the murder of Gediminas Kostukas, who was found dead in a Leicestershire field on Christmas Day 2 years ago. Nika's Lithuanian, but has spent time in Boston, in Lincolnshire, Peterborough and Liverpool. My number 2 here is Fararu Lordaha, and she's wanted for a distraction burglary in Newport, Shropshire, last September. The victim was an 85-year-old man. Now, this photo was taken a few years ago, so she will look older now. Police think Lordaha is Romanian, but could well be in London, perhaps working with a female accomplice. At number 3 here is Amir Ali Akhlahi, and he's on the run after defrauding a businessman out of 50 grand. It's not the first time he's been in trouble with the police. In 2007, he was charged with a similar offence, but did a run-up. Akhlahi is originally from Iran and has connections to St John's Wood in London. And number 4 here is extremely dangerous and has to be found tonight. Anthony Calvert here is charged with 23 sexual offences, including rape, spanning a 20-year period. He's on the run and has tried to disguise his appearance with a bit of plastic surgery, but bad luck because we know what he now looks like. He's originally from Bury in Lancashire, but he might well be hiding out in Somerset. So if you know where Calvert or any of the others are hiding out tonight, pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or you can text us 63399, just type crime space and then your message. It's important to leave that space where your message won't get through. You can also check these mugshots out online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch, and remember, all our Most Wanted stay on the website until they're caught.
Still to come.
What are you doing? Stop it! It's gross!
The carjacking that turned into a hit and run.
Can you name this man, the New Year's Eve rapist who dressed up as a pirate?
And in the week, Paul Hutchinson was jailed for life for the murder of 16-year-old Colette Aram. I've got the story of how police finally solved the first ever case on Crimewatch.
So all of that is still to come. Now this is little Alana Meehan, who was just 4 years old when her life, along with her grandmother's, came to an abrupt end. 18 months ago, an arsonist torched Alana's grandparents' home in Bolton, destroying her family and the life of the brave firefighter who tried to save them.
Fire service.
I will need a fire brigade, please. There's fire everywhere.
Right, how many people in the house? Who else is in the house?
My daughter, 4-year-old daughter, and my parents.
Where is she?
Next to me, in the bedroom.
There's fire engines on the way and they'll be with you any time.
On the 23rd of June 2008, somebody deliberately set fire to this property in Great Lever, Bolton. That night, they devastated the lives of 2 families. Who targeted this property remains a mystery, but somebody knows who did it, and the murder of 2 innocent people is a heavy burden to carry around.
My daughter, she lives in Australia. She came to visit me and my wife.
Hamida, they're here!
Simon have, the beautiful girl called Alana. She is a beautiful flower which you have, in your garden. She's beautiful granddaughter. She's a beautiful girl. After dinner, I said to my wife, I'm going upstairs in my bed.
I'm tired, let's go.
Round about, I can say 10 o'clock, 10:15.
It's a bit early for you, isn't it, Dad?
Well, your daughter, she's full of energy. She make me tired.
Okay. I'll be up in a minute.
All right, Steve, okay?
Been in the fire service for 13 years. This particular night we came on duty at 6 o'clock in the evening, took over from the on-duty watch. We checked off the fire appliances, inventory check, equipment and various other duties.
She's always on me about that. I'm always handing it. Well, you know what I see that every time.
Hello, fire service. Hi, we need a fire brigade, please. The address? Yeah, it's one little home walk. See, there's fire everywhere. I can't see anything. I'm upstairs. My daughter's asleep. My mom, please. I can't get home.
We got a call to a house fire.
West 50.
It was a 2-pump shout, as it always is.
The fire quickly engulfed the front door and spread into the house, trapping the family upstairs.
Are you all right? Oh, help me, please! Help me, my family are up there!
Somebody pulled me from outside through windows. I couldn't see anything except how I can save my wife and how I can save my children.
Please! Hamida! Hamida, Sana! Hamida! Please! Hamida!
We bolted off the pump and ran towards the house. The hose reel didn't reach the house, so we had to drop the hose reel. We couldn't wait. We needed to get in there and save lives.
Hamida, please! Hamida! Please, somebody, quickly, my family! Sana, ready! Hamida!
Went through the house, found our way to the stairs. I looked at the fire and decided it was small enough to give us time to effect a rescue.
Take your room, I'll check down here. The fire service! Got 2 casualties here. Got a young girl. Come on, darling.
Got her?
Yeah. He's unconscious but breathing.
Everybody out of the way! Casualty coming through!
Suddenly there was a massive heat temperature rise.
Get out now!
I remember saying to myself, oh my God, I'm on fire. Seeing my hands on fire, my gloves well alive, and my sleeves and everything.
Let me help you!
Yeah, I was panicking.
I saw, it looks me that somebody cut my heart, because I never think, that this thing is going to happen.
I've been on fire somehow!
Horror. Just horror. I remember I couldn't see because blood was trickling down my face. They cut my gloves off, but when they started cutting them off, I looked at my hand. I saw my skin peel off like tissue paper.
Due to the outstanding bravery of the firefighters, Mumtaz and his daughter Saima were saved, but 71-year-old Hamida sustained 83% burns and died the very next day. Little Alana was strong, but with her organs failing one by one, she died just over a month later. She was 4 years old.
Totally my family is destroyed. My wife, she's innocent. My granddaughter is innocent. My beautiful daughters, she didn't done anything. She came here to just visit us. I lost everything.
I had 50% first-degree burns to my body. They say I suffered a stroke and affected all this side of my body. There's a catalogue of things wrong.
It's been a year and a half since the community came together to help a family when they needed them most. An innocent woman and child have been murdered, and a firefighter's life destroyed. Now is the time for the community to pull together once again and bring the killer to justice.
I have carers who come in the morning to help wash me and dress me and put my shoes on, put my socks on. When you're able-bodied fighting fit fireman to being reduced to this, it's quite devastating.
Every day I die and every day I live. On that hope, that might be they can come back, might we can get, the justice. So, my life is nothing now.
It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? I'm joined by DCI Jeff McMahon. We saw you there in the film, Jeff. Two families just have been devastated by this crime.
They have, Kirsty. We've had 3 generations of one family virtually wiped out. A grandfather left without a grandchild and a wife. He was a husband as well. Steve Morris, the firefighter, trying to recover from 50% first-degree burns. He suffered a stroke. His life destroyed too.
And Steve's such a brave man. We saw that it was clearly a deliberate arson attack. What about the motive? Do you think in these circumstances that it is racist?
Well, it's certainly a deliberate attack, and we've looked at that as a line of inquiry,
right,
as we've looked at many other lines of inquiry, and certainly the family were targeted and we're sure of that. We're clearly not too clear about the motive on the night, and we're looking into the background, and those are inquiries that are very much ongoing.
OK, Jeff, remind people who live in the area, what was the night in particular?
It was the evening of Monday the 23rd of June 2008, 18 months ago, and again anything that was seen of a suspicious nature in that area on the estate, Little Orme Estate, please ring in and tell us.
Now, I know you and your team have had a lot of very useful help from people within the community, but it is still your belief that the key to solving this horrific pair of murders is right deep within that community?
Yes, we believe that. Certainly we think whoever's set fire to that bin and responsible for this crime have spoken to family, friends, a loved one perhaps, and now is the time for that person to come forward and help us out, and let's get some peace for the families that have been devastated by this horrible crime.
That's for sure, Jeff. I should tell you, there is a huge reward on offer, 25 grand for information leading to an arrest and conviction. So please, for both families, pick up the phone now. There's the number. It's 0500 600 600, or you could call the independent charity Crime Stoppers. You can do that anonymously. Their number 0800 555 111. Now, here's Rav with this month's CCTV.
Determined and dangerous, but all caught on camera. Will you recognise them? We're teeing off at Taunton Vale Golf Club in Somerset last March. I wonder what this bloke's handicap is. He heads to the locker room and has a go at entering the security code. Give it up, mate. But it's not long before he's back to have another crack, and he's looking pretty shifty. Oi, up here. Hole in one. He eventually cracks the code and goes inside to help himself to thousands of pounds of golfing gear. He's a seasoned pro, operating up and down the country. Here he is, up to no good again, this time joined by a partner in crime at Oakmere Park Golf Club in Nottingham. They're believed to have targeted over 50 golf clubs, pilfering over £500,000 of kit. Help us put a stop to their stealing streak. Who are they? Next, Ladbrokes in Wood Green, North London, back in May. And this gang of robbers think they've picked a winner. Just moments before, they kidnapped the manager as he walked home, tied his hands and beat the alarm and safe codes out of him. They nicked thousands of pounds and probably think the odds of them getting caught are pretty slim. But they didn't bet on this. Here's an e-fit of one of the gang. Could it be this guy spotted loitering opposite? They abducted an innocent man off the street and must be stopped. Names, please. London Euston Station in June. Watch out for this guy with the red rucksack. He's on the prowl, looking for young women to hassle. Here he is approaching one unsuspecting lady. He sneaks up behind her before she gives him his marching orders. But that doesn't put him off as he heads outside to look for his next victim. He spots this girl in the smoking area and pounces. First, he tries to strike up conversation. She's clearly not interested and gets up to go. But as she walks past, he blocks her path and then gropes her chest before she can escape. He's a sex pest and needs finding fast. Who is he? It's 2 in the morning in Camden, North London, earlier this month, and police desperately need your help to find this man. He's wanted for raping a young woman. Here he is stalking his victim, waiting for his chance to attack. He then sneaks up from behind and grabs her. She's powerless against him as he picks her up completely off the ground and carries her away. He's a dangerous predator and must be found tonight. Make the streets safer and name him now. Know any of them? You know what to do. 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399. Just type crime, that's space, and then your message. And if you need a second look, go online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch.
Now, what would you do if someone jumped into your car and tried to steal it? Well, for mum of 2, Susan Musker, her instant reaction was to put up a fight. But in her case, the carjacker was prepared to stop at nothing.
I was born in Widnes and lived in Widnes all my life. Been married 39 years to my husband, who's brilliant. I'm self-employed, and the hours are flexible, so I can work mornings or afternoons. That day, I'd been into Warrington to do some Christmas shopping. Left Warrington about 3:15, headed to Millfield Road in Widnes to drop a parcel off.
Hello, how are you? I knew you've been waiting for that, haven't you?
I got a really bad feeling about a lad that I'd seen earlier, and I don't know what made me turn round, but I did, and I thought, have a look at the car. Wasn't sure, and decided to make sure.
I'll have to get off. I think I've left my purse in the
you?
car.
Oh, you better get off.
All right, I'll see you then. Bye now.
What are you doing? You keep...
Stop it!
Stupid cow!
Stop it!
Stop it!
Stop it! No! Stop! Stop it!
I just don't know why I continued to try and stop the car, except it was my car, and he was taking it off me.
Get out! Stop it! Stop it! Stop! Stop!
When I was in hospital and they said, you've got a fractured skull, and then I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You don't expect it to happen to you, and it could happen to anybody. Could be anybody's sister, could be anybody's mum. They might not be so lucky. If they fracture the skull and it internally bleeds, they just might not come out of it. And it could be someone that they know. For a car, it's just not worth it.
Well, yes, Claire Ellis is here to update us. It was a horrendous attack. Good points, if any of them can be taken from this situation, is that Susan got a really good look at the bloke who took the car. What's the description of him?
Yeah, we believe he's a white male in his early 20s with a pasty complexion. He's got short, dark, cropped hair, possibly with a fringe, and he was wearing either a grey T-shirt or a grey hoodie with dark tracksuit bottoms on the day in question.
What about the car? Have you been able to get that back?
No, we haven't recovered the car yet. We believe it may have been in the Heighton industrial estate the following day. It's a silver Ford Focus C-Max Z-Tech. It had alloy wheels and the rear windows were tinted. There is a sticker on the rear bumper of a black bull.
Okay, that's quite distinctive, isn't it? Yeah. Now, we saw two cars. There was a black car and a red car. They sort of seem to be working together or in convoy. Are they significant?
Yes, we believe they may have been travelling in convoy. We believe the red one is possibly a Ford Fiesta in red. The darker one is probably a black Ford Focus. A witness has seen these cars just prior to the incident, and it's possible that one of these cars has dropped the suspect off at the location. So we'd very much like to speak to anybody that knows anything about those cars.
Now, Claire, you've got some good CCTV, and you think it's important. Tell us what we're going to take a look at here.
Yes, this is a male that has used a credit card that was left in the vehicle, and he's in an off licence in the Page Moss area of Merseyside. I'd very much like to speak to him. That's him exiting the store. Right. About an hour later, a male was then seen in Argos in Prescott, where he used the same credit card to buy a PlayStation. We'd like to speak to that person if possible.
OK, for now, thanks very much, Claire. If you know anything that could help, please do call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600. Now here's Rav with some more of his most wanted.
Right, my number 5 here thinks he's a right bundle of laughs. He says his name's Danny Kaye, but don't be fooled, it's actually Peter Stead. Stead's been posing as the brother of comedian Peter Kaye to defraud pubs out of thousands. His routine is offering to put on a stand-up show for them in return for a donation to charity. But he pockets the cash and then does a runner. Stead's got a strong Lancashire accent and touts for security work in pubs. Next here is Mohammed Marhad, wanted in connection with the murder of a man in Cardiff back in April 2003. The victim died after being hit on the head with a metal weightlifting bar. Somalian Marhad uses a number of aliases, including Mohammed Hersey, and goes by the street names Yabada, Mafia and London Boy. He's been spotted in Sheffield, Bristol and as far afield as Toronto. There's a £5,000 reward for his arrest. Next is Justin Wan, also known as Chi Wen Wang, and he was charged with conspiracy to supply ecstasy and cannabis last year, but failed to show up at court and was sentenced to 12 years in his absence. Wan has links across southern England and could well have fled overseas. And last, but by no means least, is this fella here, Raymond Gunnell, and he's wanted for breaking the conditions of his parole after serving a life sentence for murdering his 19-year-old girlfriend. 40-year-old Gunnell was brought up in Grimsby and has links to London and Kent. Whilst in prison, he gained an MVQ in fitness coaching and could well be working as a personal trainer. So come on, if you know where any of this lot are tonight, don't wait, pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399, type crime, space, and then your message, don't forget to leave that space, or your message will not get through. And we've had more wanted faces that we put on our website, where you can also sign up for regular updates on cases that we've featured, and that's bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch.
For most of us, New Year's Eve is a time for celebration. But for one woman, it'll now only serve as a dreadful reminder, because in the early hours of New Year's Day, she was raped. The attack took place in Morecambe Town Centre, and anyone out that night, well, they wouldn't forget her attacker easily. He was dressed as a pirate. DI Joe Dent, who's leading the investigation, is here with me. This was just a normal woman, Joe, on a big New Year's night out.
Yes, that's right. She was in the Coast pub on Queen Street at Morecambe. And just after 6 a.m. on New Year's Day, the suspects entered the pub. He's engaged this woman in conversation quite soon after, and they've left at around 6:45 together, him offering to walk her home to an address nearby where she was staying. Once they've reached the address, he has forced his way into the address and raped her.
OK, now you do have some, you think, very important CCTV. We want to show it to people, and we want you to tell people what's important about it. Let's take a look now.
Yeah, this is a suspect as he enters the Coast Bar just after 6 o'clock. He's obviously wearing a wig and a quite distinctive jacket. This is him inside the club. He's taken his jacket off but still has the wig on. And then this is just prior to him leaving with the victim. He's not wearing the wig obviously now, just about to put his jacket on. This is around 6:45 on New Year's Day.
Quite important to point out that the pub itself wasn't having a fancy dress night, and there weren't any pubs around that were, so maybe he was dressed up for a party at somebody's house.
That's right, and we'd like to hear from anybody that had a house party, fancy dress house party that day.
You've also got an e-fit. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah, in addition to what you can see here, he's described as having a slight tanned complexion, stocky build, and possibly spoke with a foreign accent, Eastern European, has been suggested to us.
Now, just before we came on air tonight, you told me you had some very important, you think it's important, new information.
Yeah, we've just received some further CCTV footage, which is again from the Coast Bar. This is actually Christmas Day night into early Boxing Day. This male has entered the club and he's wearing a very similar jacket and is of similar description to the suspect that we're looking for in connection with the New Year's Day incident.
So you'd like him to come forward so you can eliminate him?
Yes,
OK. If you know this man, I would urge you to do the right thing, and that would be to call us right here in the studio. You know the number. It's 0500 600 600. You could text us 63399. If you've been a victim of crime, there's the victim support line. They're on 0845 30 30 900. Matthew.
Now, last month we had a staggering response to our appeal about the serial killer Peter Tobin. You'll remember, just before Christmas, the 63-year-old drifter was finally convicted of the murder of the teenager Dinah McNichol, who disappeared on her way home from a music festival way back in 1991.
A convicted sex offender has been found guilty of raping and murdering a Polish student in Glasgow.
Peter Tobin has been charged with the murder of Vicky Hamilton, who went missing 16 years ago.
The serial killer, Peter Tobin, is convicted of another murder. 18-year-old Dinah McNichol went missing in Essex in 1991.
After all these years, we at last know the truth and justice has prevailed.
He will never get out of prison. He will stay there until he dies.
We know at least 3 young women died in the most horrific circumstances at the hands of Peter Tobin. With speculation rife over how many more girls he's murdered, police need your help to establish whether Tobin is in fact one of the most prolific serial killers this country has ever seen.
Yes, he will rot in jail. I very much doubt he'll ever get out of jail. But you can't deny that sense of closure to any other victims' families. They need to know what happened to their child.
People are still waiting to hear from how their loved ones died, how their family have died. How many more?
Now, I'm joined by Detective Superintendent David Swintle, who's heading up the nationwide investigation into Peter Tobin's life. And, David, you were overwhelmed by the response to last month's appeal, weren't you?
Yes, it was a phenomenal response, with over 300 text messages, SMSs and emails in response to your programme.
Now, there was some key information, some specific information from Crimewatch viewers, and that's why you're here tonight.
Yes, one of the appeals was in relation to his association with biker gangs, and we have now established that Peter Tobin was associated to the Rising Sun biker gang in the Brighton area, and that was in the 80s.
Now, we know that Tobin killed 3 young girls. I mean, crucially, you want to trace other women who may have come into contact with him.
Yes, we do. There's actually 3 women that we know was linked to Peter Tobin. 2 which were in the 90s. One was called Bo, and she appeared to know Peter Tobin very well. There was another one called Becky, and she babysat for him in Havant when she was about 14 or 15 years of age.
There's a third, Leslie. Now, you think her parents may have started some sort of legal action to keep Tobin away from her?
Yes, Leslie was 14, 15 years of age, and she was associating, and she had a friendship with Tobin, and that was in the 80s. And there's indications that the parents tried to stop that relationship. There's also another person that we're keen to trace, and that's Mad Mick, and he had a connection to the biker gangs and Peter Tobin, and that was in 1986.
Now, there's one other person you want to speak to. It's a man, John Murphy. Now, he owned a scrapyard in Renfrew. Tell me about that.
Yes, Peter Tobin has connections, and he's always had connections to cars, and this is something that came as a result of the programme, and it's the Meadowside Street in Renfrew. It was a scrapyard, and that was in the 1980s, and anyone that knew that scrapyard or the owner would be keen to hear from them.
David, good luck. It is vital that we trace all of these people. Now, Peter Tobin used a variety of aliases. They are all on our website, together with pictures of jewellery David and his team need to identify, and a timeline of Tobin's life. Please take a look. And if you know anything about Tobin, however minor, pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or text us on 63399. Type crime, space, and then your message. Don't forget to leave that space, or your message won't get through.
Next, some fantastic news on a case we featured just 3 months ago. The sickening sexual assault of an elderly widow.
We struggled at the door. I fought like a lion to get him out, and I was screaming. He put his hand over my mouth. Well, there was a finger, so I bit into this finger, and the blood started pouring out.
What do you want? Go now. Go on, off you go.
No.
What do you mean, no?
After this.
Oh, no! Please, no.
Just do this. Just do this and I'll go.
Oh, no, please, no, please, no.
Evelyn was subjected to a horrendous and prolonged sexual attack.
Well, over 100 people phoned in the studio on the night of our appeal, and as a direct result, 52-year-old Carlisle man David Gillen was arrested and charged with rape, sexual assault and robbery. Gillen has just pleaded guilty to all offences and will be sentenced in March.
We've been all over the news this week because the first ever appeal on Crimewatch was solved after 26 years. On Monday, former school governor and father of 4, Paul Hutchinson, was sentenced to life for the murder of teenager Colette Aram. Matthew has the inside story of how police finally caught their man.
It's my sister. My sister.
The girl found lying here in this field on that day in October 1983 was 16-year-old Colette Aram. The teenager had been abducted, sexually assaulted, and then brutally killed. Colette's murder would spark a national outcry and became the first ever appeal on a new BBC crime programme, Crimewatch.
Hello and welcome to Crimewatch UK. We start with a case that's chilling. Somewhere, probably in the English Midlands, there's a killer on the loose.
On the morning of Colette's murder, a man was seen loitering at some riding stables in the Home Pierpoint area, just 5 miles from Colette's home. He went on to steal a car parked nearby. From there, he set off on a journey that would end with Colette's murder. For 3 hours, he stalked young girls around the Keyworth area, but without success.
Yeah, look, come here. Can you tell me where Wolds Drive is, please?
Just come out of it.
That evening, Colette Aram left home to walk the short distance to her boyfriend's house. When she didn't arrive, the alarm was raised.
As a mother, I knew that there was something really, really wrong, and I just didn't want to think that she might be dead, but deep down, I just had this awful feeling.
At 9 a.m. the next morning, Colette's body was found lying in farmland close to her home. She was naked, her blouse had been tied to her wrist, and the rest of her clothes had been dumped alongside her.
The police appeared at the top of the drive, and I just saw this policeman shake his head, and I knew then that she was dead. All I remember now are the screams. My screams.
The details of Colette's murder shocked even hardened detectives. Whoever killed the teenager was extremely violent and very dangerous. The police investigation that followed was one of the biggest manhunts in the history of Nottinghamshire police.
It was a massive investigation in 1983. Over 50 detectives worked on the inquiry. Over 2,000 statements were taken, house to house, all over Keyworth. The sightings of the man fitting the suspect's description, the sightings of the vehicle, people came forward and wanted to help the police, very much so.
Within 2 days of launching the investigation, detectives had a breakthrough. A landlady from a local pub had served a man who was acting suspiciously on the night of the murder.
On holiday, are you?
No, actually, I took the wrong turning off the motorway.
She also noticed that this man had blood on his hands and disappeared to the toilet. The man fitted the description of our suspect. He got blood on his hands the same night that Colette was killed, and his story just didn't add up.
Detectives were convinced they were closing in on their man. But then, 2 weeks into the investigation, things took a disturbing turn. A letter arrived for police detailing Colette's murder and mocking detectives. It claimed to be from the killer himself.
A Ripper-style letter, almost mocking the police and leading the police away from Keyworth.
Superintendent, how much credence do you put in this weird letter?
There are certain aspects of this letter which make us think that it probably is genuine, like that is from the man who murdered Colette.
Keyworth was ripped apart by this horrendous offence, and they then thought, could the offender still be amongst them?
Police managed to get fingerprints from the letter, but no match was found. And even though they had blood and semen samples from the scene, DNA technology was in its infancy and couldn't be used to identify offenders. The investigation continued for a further 2 years, but with police exhausting all major leads and the miners' strike of 1984 pulling valuable resources, the case went cold. It seemed Colette's killer had slipped through the net.
An undetected murder case is never closed. The police were determined that they would catch the killer. In 2004, the case again featured on Crimewatch.
This is Colette's mother, Jackie Kirkby.
It's 21 years in October, and I remember it as if it was yesterday.
We reinvigorated the inquiry from then, but one of the things that we looked at was the possibility of trying to develop the offender profile.
In the 21 years since the murder, there had been huge technical advances in DNA profiling. Key forensic evidence was systematically and painstakingly re-examined. And one piece of evidence all those years ago would prove vital.
One of the key exhibits was a paper towel that had been recovered from the gents' toilets at the public house. We managed to locate one specific area of that paper towel which yielded a full male DNA profile. We also found on that paper towel DNA matching Colette Aram herself.
That meant that the suspicions held in 1983 were confirmed. The man in the pub was definitively our suspect.
With a full DNA profile of the killer, police searched the national DNA database. But in a setback for detectives, no match was found. The team weren't giving up. They tried everything. House-to-house inquiries, reviewing thousands of original statements, even a new Crimewatch appeal. Then, on the 26th of March last year, a single phone call changed everything.
Mr. Flynn, we've got a match.
DNA taken from a man arrested for a minor driving offence confirmed he came from the same family as the killer. It was the breakthrough detectives had been looking for.
That led us to be interested in 4 brothers. One of those brothers had sadly died earlier in the year, but on the 7th of April, 3 of the surviving brothers were arrested. 2 gave frank accounts of their movements, and we were able to eliminate those through examination of their DNA.
That left the remaining brother, 51-year-old Paul Hutchinson.
Well, we started to build up a picture of this man. We knew that the family would live about 500 yards from where the Ford Fiesta was stolen. At the time of the murder, Hutchinson lived with his wife's parents in Keyworth, and that was about 7 streets away from where the car was repeatedly seen.
But if Hutchinson was Colette's murderer and had been living with his family in the area at the time, how had he managed to get away with it? Detectives soon proved that Hutchinson had gone to extraordinary lengths to deceive even those closest to him.
Unbelievably, this man lied to his family and friends and feigned having cancer, and even went to the extent of shaving clumps of hair, mimicking the effects of treatment of cancer. We believe that he went away, implying that he spent some time in hospital during the crucial time of this investigation.
As the investigation wound down, Hutchinson managed to blend back into the community.
He effectively became a pillar of society. He was a family man, raised 3 children with his second wife. He stayed local, worked for the local Lions charity. He was well respected within the community.
Hutchinson was even pictured at a local charity event with the then Lord Mayor of Nottingham. In a chilling twist, the mayor happened to be Colette's uncle.
Yes? The truth behind this man was that he was an inveterate liar. He had a previous marriage which was violent. He'd lied in that. He even inferred that he'd got a psychology degree, which was a complete and utter lie. An extremely deceitful, violent individual.
Paul Hutchinson?
Yes?
I'm arresting you for the murder of Colette Aram in Keyworth in 1983.
In keeping with a man who'd kept Colette's murder a secret for over a quarter of a century, Hutchinson was utterly cold during his police interviews, refusing to accept his guilt. Faced with irrefutable DNA evidence, he even went as far as trying to blame his dead brother. But little did he know, the letter he'd sent police, arrogantly taunting them back in 1983, would finally seal his fate.
When we compared Hutchinson's fingerprints to those that were unidentified on that letter, there was a positive match. Ironically, his fingerprint was found above the words, "Got me caught."
Then, out of the blue, before his trial, Hutchinson changed his plea to guilty. But to this day, he remains totally silent about Colette's murder.
He's been given an opportunity to tell us and to tell the family why he committed such an horrendous crime, and he's not taken that chance to give some solace to the family.
I'd like to know why he felt the need to do what he did. You know, this innocent 16-year-old girl, did she really deserve to die the way she died?
As Colette's mum says, they know the who but not the why.
Yeah, it's the burning question for the family. Do you know, they interviewed him for 2 days, and for 2 days he just said no comment, no explanation, no apology, no nothing.
I think it's pretty surprising that he lived locally for all those years.
Yeah, it's staggering. For 26 years, he never lived further than 10 miles from the murder scene. He worked as an electrician, he set up that newspaper company, charity work, a school governor, all local. And I suppose it was that arrogance that we saw with that Ripper-style letter, where he genuinely thought he would never be caught. And it was a mixture of arrogance and deception. All of those lies about having cancer to cover his tracks, and then more lies to build a new life.
Matthew, what about other crimes?
Well, it was the first thing that detectives looked at. They put his DNA into the national database. They also looked at other unsolved crimes. So far, nothing, but they are still investigating that.
In the end, it was all down to dogged police work, really.
Yeah, I mean, they never gave up, and nor did Crimewatch. There were 3 major appeals, and each one generated hundreds of calls. And Kevin Flint, who headed this investigation from 2004 and got the Queen's Medal, he was saying, as detectives, you can never bring back loved ones. The most you can do is try your damnedest to get a successful prosecution, and that's what they did. Life with a minimum of 25 years.
They did it. Good news. Now, here's Rav with a quick roundup of what's been happening on the phones.
Quite a good response so far. Alan Wood, the 50-year-old so brutally murdered in his home in Lincolnshire. Remember, we showed you this e-fit of a male using Alan's cash card stolen in the attack. We've already had 5 names put forward for who that may be. Then we showed you the Bolton arson that so tragically led to a loss of a little 4-year-old's life and so dramatically changed brave firefighter Morris's forever. We've had 2 names already passed to the investigating officers for that. Then Peter Tobin, very quickly, please keep those calls coming in. We ask for people to come forward. You're not in any trouble. We just think you may have key information the police so desperately need.
That's all for now. Details on all of tonight's cases are online, www.bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. You can log on right now for a live update on what's been happening here on the phones. Let's hope it's been a busy night. The lines are open until midnight tonight, 7:30 tomorrow morning. Our next programme, that's going to be on Monday the 22nd of February, but please don't go away because we're going to be back after the news with a full update on all of tonight's cases. If you can help but you haven't called yet, please do it now. It could all be down to you. I'll see you at 10:45. Bye-bye.